Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our live stream today. Today's topic is becoming a Google Cloud digital leader. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam. I'm head of marketing here at Cloud Institute. If you're not familiar with us, we are a training and coaching company that equips IT teams to confidently deliver on IT projects. We offer personalized coaching with cloud experts and hands-on project-based training to help you with your live projects. I'm happy to introduce one of our experts, our cloud leader, Zaki Medina, who will be presenting today. Zaki is an expert instructor and cloud coach who's coached thousands of aspiring data scientists and engineers. Before I turn it over to Zaki, I want to encourage you to ask questions in the comments. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. And also, we'll be recording this, and the recording will be available here on this LinkedIn event page immediately afterwards if you miss anything. And if you'd like a copy of the slide deck, leave us a comment and we'll connect with you and get that over to you as soon as we can. We're going to try to keep this right at about an hour. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Zaki. Zaki, take it away.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that. Hopefully, everybody can see my screen today. I want to definitely welcome everybody to our webinar here on becoming the Cloud Digital Leader. We're really thrilled to have you join us today, and we look forward to guiding you through this sort of exciting journey. In the next 15 minutes, we'll explore some of the key concepts, certifications, and the best practices to acquiring this certification that you need to know, and also what this means, right? And so on. So let's dive in together. Um, a little bit about myself. I've sort of spent the last 15 years in cloud, building out multi-cloud environments within a variety of many industries. And you could say, predominantly e-commerce, healthcare, retail, as well as finance and regulated industries like manufacturing and oil and gas, as well as utilities. So a lot of experience in that foray, and probably in the last 7 years, I've been really focused on AI and data science. And as we know, AI and data and machine learning are sort of the fast growing workloads that are coming to the cloud. So really, please feel free to ask questions around that. Again, our goal, we have sort of a big topic here. Before we dive in, want to look at sort of a quick overview of what our agenda is on today's webinar, right? So we'll start with sort of an introduction to the Google Cloud Digital Leader role. What is that certification? How it came out to be? What's some of the value that it brings? And also, discuss like why you should consider becoming one. And next, we'll sort of differentiate, what is these different paths within Google's overall cloud certification journey? Because I know for some of you, you've probably heard here, there's cloud digital leader. There's also other roles like associate cloud engineer and professional cloud architect. How do they all fit in as well, right? So we'll definitely talk a bit about that. We'll also help you map out this sort of certification journey and share some of the top resources to ensure that you are successful in acquiring the certification. And finally, we'll discuss sort of the importance of, how you can plan out your sort of your certification path and so on, and some of the resources that we will have available at even Cloud Institute to help you with that. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the Q&A session. At the time, I do encourage everyone to post their questions on the chat here, and we'll definitely get to those when we ask them. And feel free to let us know if there's something else that we haven't answered, maybe specific to the Google Cloud certification side. Again, this is a series of many different GCP or Google Cloud related certification webinars and live streams that we are hosting in for a while in 2023. And if you do have any suggestions on topics, do let us know on what those are. Awesome. So, let's begin by understanding what is sort of the Google Cloud Digital Leader, right? So, in Google's words, a Google Cloud Digital Leader, or CDL for short, right? It's only it's only real if it's an acronym, right, guys? So it is really an expert who has a strong understanding of cloud concepts, and not just of concepts, but also how the underlying Google Cloud or GCP, and I use those terms Google Cloud and GCP interchangeably, how those core products and services play a crucial role in helping organizations design, build, and manage their cloud solutions, right? So, a digital leader is this individual that you could go to anyone in the company could go to, and it's sort of that go-to person, you know, on advice on, hey, we want to deploy, leverage, the GCP cloud or the Google cloud. What are some of the things we need to start thinking about from a requirements, from a planning, from an execution, implementation, from a management, from a sustainment pieces. Now, what's interesting is that you're like, hey, this is the first certificate in Google. Why are we talking about all of this in certification number one? Well, Google Cloud Digital Leader is actually a very new certification or newish versus the other cloud vendor certification, and we'll double click into those as well, what those are and how they compare. And so, because they started late to the party, Google Cloud certified GCP Cloud Digital Leader is actually a much more difficult certification than the other sort of intro to cloud, or fundamentals to cloud or foundations to cloud from other cloud providers, right? So it's actually a much difficult exam. And that's why this session today is going to help uncover how to successfully pass that, e- even on the first attempt, right? So that's really our focus here. We're not going to be covering, what is the actual course itself. We will need at least a day, a full day or 2 days to do that. And that could be a separate feedback from you guys if you guys are interested to see something like this in this format. We can definitely look at that. So again, going back to the Cloud Digital Leader or the CDL certification, it's really ideal for those who want to establish themselves as experts in the Google Cloud ecosystem and want to help their organizations drive innovation, and growth using Google Cloud technologies, right? So from a high level, if you think about it, a lot of folks coming into this may have already experienced cloud. Hey, I've used other cloud vendors. I've used AWS. I've used Azure. I've used other IBM, Oracle, right? Great. That's excellent because but there's still understanding what are the various Google core products and services. Probably that's where you should be focusing. No, not more on cloud fundamentals, but more so on what are the specific things. So we'll dive into some of these areas as well where they play a role. But ideally, Google's thought behind this certification is to present a real all-rounder in terms of understanding all aspects of the cloud, and someone with sort of building that business acumen as well as technical acumen around that. So now the question becomes, why become a Google Cloud Digital Leader? Well, you might be wondering, you know, there are actually several compelling reasons to pursue this, right? First, as a career path, there's a high demand for skilled Google Cloud professionals, which means plenty of job opportunities in the marketplace. A lot of companies are actually doing not just one cloud, they're doing multi-cloud. They won't put all their eggs in one cloud provider, right? So you often see a situation where GCP ends up being the number two for a lot of cloud providers out there. They may go with either AWS or Azure, and then move to GCP as a secondary option, right? As an easy option. So that's something that typically cloud vendors, a lot of IT organizations are moving towards. That's at least that's what I'm seeing. So there's a huge opportunity in terms of job opportunities in this market, some attractive salary packages and promising career goals. Some people could say it's you could get an increment, salary ranges. You could just look it up. I think O'Reilly talks about a Google Cloud architect, which is a much higher level architect, as someone who gets like 200K USD per year. That's a very attractive option for a lot of folks. So, and then the next piece about Google Cloud certification is around how it enhances your credibility and marketability, helps you stand out from the crowd, and it increases the chances of being hired by top companies. A lot of folks are looking to upskill and reskill some of their cloud, IT skills, and obviously cloud is a very important piece of that. The GCP Cloud Digital Leader certification aims to be that and much more, right? So in short, it can open up a bunch of uh, opportunities if you're looking for a job, or at the second time if you're really looking to augment your existing skill set as a cloud practitioner and really become more of an expert or a jack of all trades. It can also lend to that. Now, I typically like to just go straight into the different paths, right? So let's take a moment to discuss the different paths that are available in Google Cloud. There's basically three main roles that you could choose from based on your interests, right? And the most popular one was, I mean, I guess the most popular one used to be, the precursor to the Cloud Digital Leader course. It was just a foundational course, but it's now been replaced. So this is sort of the first foray. Anyone going into any advanced GCP or Google Cloud certifications has to start at a Cloud Digital Leader. And the reasoning behind that, as I mentioned, is you want to equip the individual with enough business acumen and technical acumen to have a conversation around cloud and how it fits and so on. And I guess some of this is really kudos to Google for really listening to the market on this. One of the challenges about cloud um, is that sometimes the cloud is cloudy, in the sense that once a enterprise or an organization or team makes the decision to go cloud, full cloud, typically there's a rush to do it. And I think a lot of organizations fell into that. When you think about the pandemic, the situation where a lot of organizations were kind of caught with their pants down when it comes to remote working and building business continuity and fast forwarding their digital transformation initiatives. Cloud is a very big piece and foundational piece of that. So now, as a result of folks rushing into the cloud, a lot of folks realize, hey, the cloud, we didn't really plan this migration properly. We're spending a lot more money than we were spending in when had our own on-premise environment. How do we mitigate this, right? And a lot of companies would just go back to. I've also seen some companies going back from cloud back to an on-premise model or even a hybrid model, which really is not optimum down the road, right? When you have regulated and restricted industries like utilities and healthcare that are on cloud and really reaping the benefits of cloud, it makes no sense that any other enterprise should go that way, right? And I can understand there are idiosyncrasies about your workloads, your products and services. A hybrid approach may work, but cloud is here to stay. And so, there is another separate topic around cloud spending and how to manage it and building that acumen around that. They typically call you financial operations or FinOps. I think at Cloud Institute, we have a few webinars I've done, as well as my other colleagues have done, around FinOps. So please feel free to check those out if you're interested. So essentially with cloud, what Google has done is they've made it very simple. They've not introduced different tiers. Their sort of vision and guideline is we want everybody to be as dangerous they can work. Basically, they want to create folks that are not junior, intermediate, or experts, but people that can actually hit the ground running on all of these. And so, as a cloud digital leader, you can hit the ground running. As a cloud engineer, you can hit the ground running. All of these certifications gives everybody sort of the technical aptitude around the GCP cloud environment, right? So each of these paths, again, sort of offer their unique opportunities and challenges. A lot of times, folks want to make it to the cloud architect role, so they'll start with the cloud digital leader role, then move to the cloud engineer role, where they get sort of the hands-on expertise, right, on that. So, if you think about the cloud digital leader, as I mentioned before, it focuses on cloud concepts as well as the Google Cloud core products and services, but it goes further, right? It's really meant for those folks that want to help their organization strategize and implement cloud solutions. Oftentimes, these are program managers, project managers, IT managers, directors, any business professional. As cloud has become sort of a necessary, it's like learning Excel. The importance of Excel and email is so prevalent. Learning about cloud has just become as prevalent as that. And I feel AI and machine learning will be following that road as well, if not a lot of us are using that already today. So once you've got that acumen, The next stage is the associate cloud engineer role, right? And these are designed for professionals that want to have hands-on experience in managing applications on the Google Cloud, right? And they're really responsible for deploying, monitoring, and maintaining projects on the Google Cloud. So, and then finally, leveraging this experience, let's say you are a cloud engineer for a few years, maybe a year or so, and you're thinking, hey, I've got a hankering to actually build out these environments and solutions, then the professional cloud architect is the role for you. It is an advanced role. It requires sort of some expertise in designing, developing, managing sort of these robust and secure cloud solutions. Again, it requires, I often recommend folks to have some experience working in the field with GCP cloud or any cloud environment that you've managed at least for a year or 6 months. And then you can move on to architecting and then designing the infrastructure. So, and so, the GCP professional cloud architect role, again, is a very premier role. From the GCP cloud architect role, you could actually move into the cloud developer role and the cloud DevOps engineer role as well, right? So developer is more like, hey, I want to leverage the GCP cloud to build my, backend code, my APIs, my front end code, and so on, and maybe even some of AI and machine learning workloads. And there's a separate piece around that as well we'll discuss. And DevOps is really around sort of that continuous integration, continuous deployment model, leveraging agile, ensuring that everything we deploy on code, we're able to do that, right? There's an understanding of how that orchestration, that infrastructure orchestration, those containers all work together to deploy apps, applications, and so on seamlessly, you know, and so on. So, DevOps very different. I would say that's more of an infrastructure piece. So again, it all depends where you want to focus on. A lot of folks doing basically between the digital leader, the cloud digital leader, and the cloud engineer role, associate role, will give anyone enough information on the business and the technical acumen around GCP, right? The rest is all specialization, hence the color is different for that. Now, a lot of folks are admins, right? The questions come up is, hey, what if I'm an administrator today? I manage my on-premise environment for my organization, for my IT department, for my teams. Well, the associate cloud engineer is a great role. Some of you may ask the question, what if I'm a solution architect that has conversations with customers to understand their requirements and or even solution architect for other departments within my organization and understand how to build the right type of tools and apps and IT infrastructure for them? Well, the cloud architect will probably be the right approach, right? Now, another question would be, what if I'm a developer that's building and we have a sandbox environment in Google Cloud and we have to deploy this using Google Cloud? How do I build my expertise? Well, at that point, assuming you have the associate cloud engineer, highly recommend the cloud developer role. Some of you may ask the question, hey, I manage our infrastructure. I look after sort of the care and feed of our software team development. I want to ensure that, we follow the agile process. I look after, deploying the different containers, Kubernetes clusters and so on. Well, the cloud DevOps engineer is the role for you. The other roles, and I'll just talk briefly about those, specifically around data engineer. It's really around how do you create the pipelines necessary for that data to be deployed. Because if you think about an organization, almost every organization has different kinds of data, right? It has elements of structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data, data residing on different databases, and so on. And that data has to be brought to different parts of the organization, right? And there has to be a level of permissions and so on. That's what a data engineer does. It ensures that that data is being captured, being ingested, is being collected, is being stored securely, and is being sent to other downstream or even upstream applications for further processing. And really, if you think about it, yes, it is the plumbing, but it's the plumbing for the whole data infrastructure and architecture that an organization happens to run on. And if you think about how important data has become now. Um, a lot of organizations are actually starting to monetize their data. So this could be an organization that sells widgets. Hey, I sell widgets. I sell products, but guess what? More and more organizations are starting to sell their data to other third-party companies, and data has become sort of another product, another revenue item, revenue generating item for organizations. And this is something maybe too far into the future, or maybe which I mean probably 5 years, but it's something that's coming up. So the rise of data engineers is coming up. Just side note, I started my journey as a telecommunications engineer, worked in voice over IP collaboration, moved to network engineering, moved to building data centers, and then moved to AI and machine learning and data science. Now went back to data engineering as that's sort of where, the whole communication of, where you're connecting different data streams, data pools, data marts to the upstream applications and so on for processing and things like that. So data engineering is a very powerful role. Um, and it's something that doesn't get a lot of love. So I have a lot of love for our data engineers. Um, Cloud security engineer, again, this will be a big topic for us in the month of May as we really look at in Cloud Institute, we have a sort of our promotion and sort of our theme for the month of May. We're focused on cloud security, especially around GCP, cloud security, things of that nature. And if you want to look into that, then we have the cloud network engineer is, you're done networking on premise. Now here's how we do networking, creating virtual networks and, ensuring we have the right type of access given to folks and so on, ensuring there's the right level of security and firewalls and application load balancers, all of those things are being deployed correctly, as well as hybrid environments. So these hybrid environments are where people have both an on-premise environment and a cloud environment, and you're running sort of the cloud network engineer role would help you take that on. So again, all my network engineers, this is sort of the certification. Then we have sort of the collaboration engineer, leveraging some of the workspace, the Google products and services, Google Meets, things like that, where you want to deploy, desktop virtualization and leverage some of those, collaboration tools and so on. And then finally, machine learning engineer. And this is more around the data scientists that will be building models, that will be taking the data provided by the pipelines that were developed by the data engineers and leveraging those to build out their models, and then deploying those, training those models, deploying those to production, applying some type of machine learning ops or ML ops. This is a play on the word DevOps, and making sure that those machine learning models are delivering value on some of their use cases and so on. So maybe you have an app that does people upload pictures to, and you want to resize those pictures and create AI avatars. You would be leveraging AI to generate that. You have an AI model that already learned that as people are uploading their pictures, the AI model is going to go and upload and change those pictures, convert those into sort of these AI cool looking AI avatars, right? So that is just an example of an application where you could use those. So all in all, I would say take a moment to look at, this path. Often this is sort of a 50,000-foot view of everything. Find out the path that aligns to your career goals and interests. Are you going to leverage cloud as just another skill set? You're still a business professional. You work in other departments outside of IT. Then the cloud digital leader is good enough. And then for the other folks within IT, within machine learning, within analytics, and within sort of technology, then you would be going cloud engineer upwards, right? And so um, this is something very interesting that you could look at. So want to call out managing the certification journey, right? We all start off differently. I know there are folks on the call that, for some of you, this may be the first cloud webinar that you're attending. For some of you, this may be the 100th one or a higher one. I don't know. And we have folks coming from different areas. But I think the common thread here is that all interested in acquiring the certification that is the Cloud Digital Leader. But based on where everyone coming in, there's a different sort of need with respect to how much you need to study for it, right? So if you're absolutely brand new to cloud or GCP in general, I would recommend you spend at least 30 hours, I would say 25 to 30 hours on studying before you attempt your first exam, your CDL, your Cloud Digital Leader exam. And this will give you enough time to go through, all the necessary pieces. So typically, if you take out this 30 hours, you can break it down into 1 or 2 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. Maybe you spend a bit extra hours on the weekends and so on, and to study for this. So this is again based on a very novice, teaching folks that are for the first time. This is the feedback I've received from past students. um, and now, if you have worked on other cloud vendors and you have certifications, you've done, for instance, the CLF CO1 at AWS and the AZ900 for Azure, then I would say you cut your time by half. Maybe you don't spend a lot of time on the cloud fundamentals, like learning about, what's a cloud, what are the benefits of cloud, what is a PaaS, what is platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, all of those things, right? Those cloud concepts you're already familiar with, maybe you just brush up on them, but you're really going to double click into sort of the core Google core services and 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 so on. So you'll think about, hey, what's the equivalent of Google? Like within the Azure world, I have um, Azure SQL database. What's the equivalent of that in the GCP world, right? Example of that. So that's where you would spend your time trying to find out what does that look like. And then finally, if you've passed higher, you're an administrator in other cloud environments, you're already familiar with how, AWS, you've managed AWS environments, IT environments, cloud environments, you've managed Azure cloud environments, then it would probably be a weekend, right? To really just focus on where everything is, how everything is connected, and so on. So it will be a much quicker way for you to proceed, right? So again, this is just calling out based on some of the feedback we've received from students and where sort of everything plays, right? So again, everyone is different. Um, Now, it all depends. For some of the folks that are more business centric roles, right? You may, even though you may have done the AZ900, but you've not applied it, and now your role is changing, you may go back and say, oh, I may have to spend a lot more time, like 30 hours on this. So that's where you would go in um, and spend some time. The second thing is if you have, let's say, a situation where, hey, we have a multi-cloud environment and I need my team to learn both AZ, the cloud foundations of both Azure and GCP, but I can only choose one course. Which one should I go with? My recommendation is to go with the hardest one, harder exam, because that will cover everything and more, which would be the GCP CDL as an example. So, I think it does a good job of covering a lot of things that were not covered in other foundational cloud courses. Some could argue you don't really need that, but I would say when rubber hits the road, you do. And I think Google recognizes that. So let's double click into some of this, right? How does the certification compare to others, right? Um, when I had done, and I've taught people across all three of these certifications, the feedback is that AWS certification or the cloud practitioner, the entry level AWS cloud certification is the easiest one, right? Very straightforward services, very straightforward questions, very well written questions, and it's been around for decades, literally. So they've had chance to improve and hone on this and so on. Now, AZ900, obviously, AZ900 a bit more difficult, and part of that is Azure has many service offerings. Like just for SQL database alone, you could use Azure SQL database, you could use Azure Cosmos DB as well with the core API. You could use several other products. Like there's just so much overlap in feature and functionality between the so many different Azure services. And the reason for that was Azure, which came from Microsoft, still has a huge on-premise following right today. So even though a lot of workloads are moving to the cloud, as a result, it's what's generated, a multiple Azure service offerings that kind of have overlapping functions, right? At the same time, I feel The exams are a little trickier, right? You kind of have to reword them. I've taught Azure for a long time, and I can tell you that the trickiness is throws a lot of people, even myself, off sometimes. So I have to reread the question, always reread every question, and so on. And so while this was in place, I think a few years ago, a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, GCP, Google Cloud decided, hey, we should have our own premier entry level certification. And guess what? We're going to make it harder than the others. And that way it will make it more elite. It will make it harder to get. It will differentiate people, and it is a big differentiator, judging by the job roles and the salary ranges and expectations and so on. So yes, it attracts a very different kind of more techie or technology focused folks and so on. So with the GCP, again, GCP services are very straightforward. The questions, though, are presented in a little more, I would say, more expanded way, like leveraging business scenarios. Hey, what would you do? You have this situation, you're owner of this app. Which kind of solution would you use? It actually makes you think. It makes you become a designer of your own cloud environment, right? To some degree. Even if you're not interested in it, you just want to learn something. The CDL is really makes you jump more deeper and more in depth in terms of this. And again, it has some tricky questions as well. There are some poorly worded questions. I believe over time these will be rectified and go through. So every certification, if you think about it, goes through like some kind of burn-in period, right? I think it's safe to say it's not a year or two, it's several years before that certification is going to be kosher. So where do you take the exam? Again, as I mentioned, there is a separate company. You could do this either online or at a test center, and these are organized by a company called Criterion. Just to share, I know some of you may be interested in that. So you'll have to create your own ID and so on for that, and that will require. So you can't leverage some of your previous Prometric, Pearson VUE, all of that stuff. So um, now, what does it take to pass the exam, right? If you think about passing the exam, obviously you have to study, you may have to do some hands-on, and then there will be some additional resources. Again, really recommend the 1 hour to 2 hours a day for studying. One of the things that come up often for folks is that, is it enough to just watch the videos and lectures and memorize this? Maybe get like a test certification, like a test account, like a free GCP account, and just see how all of this works in a lab scenario. The answer would have been yes if it was for Azure and AWS, but the answer is no for GCP. And the reason is there's a lot more detail that's not covered. And we'll cover a bit of that, what that looks like. I highly recommend to jump into sort of the GCP resources. And we have our last slide will be on resources to show you where all of these resources are. I highly recommend everybody to go through these resources and really look for yourself what these are. So you have access to a study guide. You'll have access to sort of, the Cloud Digital Leader have their own channel on YouTube. There's even a cloud adoption framework, right, that Google has published, which is kind of like a blueprint for deploying any kind of cloud solution on GCP. And then there are the various case studies and best practices for enterprise organizations. So they really want you to come as sort of like a junior solution architect at the end of completing and successfully passing your GCP Cloud Digital Leader certification, right? And so on. So we'll talk a bit about what those resources look like, as well as in a couple of slides from now, as well as some of the offerings that Cloud Institute has, where we provide you some free offerings as well as some risk-free offerings. I would say that's the combination of our offerings today. Question on what's the content look like, right? Now, oftentimes, typically when a lot of times students come out of courses and say, hey, I was expecting something in the exam and then something else came. And they go back and they look at sort of the prerequisites, they go back, look at the course outline and the syllabus, and they say, hey, it doesn't jive well. And I'm here to tell you that still continues. with the GCP course, right? Some of the stuff when you go on the official GCP page, they'll tell you, hey, it's kind of a simple exam. They kind of downplay the simplicity of it, right? Oh, hey, it's 90-minute exam, 1.5 hours. It's $100. There's 60 questions. There are multiple choice, or multiple select questions, or multiple answer questions. Very simple. Yeah, you'll be done in 30 minutes, right? Or 25 minutes, right? The answer is no, not with this exam, right? And I'll share with you why. So when you look at the left, you see they've captured sort of all the topic areas, right? Digital transformation with Google Cloud, infrastructure and application modernizing, innovating with data, and then Google Cloud security and operations, right? So you're getting the gist of this. But now, if I think about this, we're not here to study concepts, not just concepts. We're here to really look at how to set up a GCP cloud environment. We're here to plan and configure a cloud solution, how to deploy and implement a cloud solution, as well as ensure its successful operation while also keeping its security footprint and access all under lock and key and control. So very powerful stuff, right? Again, we don't know the distribution of these domains, right? How they play a role. Each of these bullet points are really just domains, right? For the GCP course. Um, Now, once you do the exam, there's a bit of a there's a bit of a typo here, right? A bit of a typo when you look at um, in your exam grading. It's supposed to say 1,000 here, not 700 over 100. That would be a very high score. Basically, you need 70% to pass, right? And then Google uses what is called scaled scoring, right? So it's not raw scoring. It's not saying you need to pass all questions and so on. So what is scaled scoring? So typically when you do an exam, right? And let's say out of that exam, you had 100 questions and you answered 80 of them correctly. 80 is your raw score, right? Again, this raw score is definitely easier to calculate. But guess what? The GCP leader, Cloud Digital Leaders exam, there's going to be different versions of it, different forms of it. Some may be 50 questions, some may be 60 questions, and some may be between 50 and 60 questions, right? So testing companies want to make sure that the tests can be fairly and accurately compared, even if they were taking different versions, even if the test takers or students were taking different versions or forms of the test on different dates. So this scale score is what allows us to make accurate comparisons and ensure that people who took the more difficult test are not penalized versus the people who took a less difficult test, and so on. So this all really goes into ensuring there's no unfair advantage that's deployed, right? So scaled scores are sort of the ways in which to build this. Finally, we have sort of our, you know, these questions, right? Now, the question a lot of students ask is, hey, how many questions can I get wrong, right? There is no right or wrong answer on this, again, obviously, but typically I have personally come across as 18 as sort of the number, right? You can get between 15 to 18 questions wrong. Again, no penalty for wrong questions, but again, you have to make sure that you document which question was wrong and come back to it, because if you're wrong enough times, obviously you'll have to repeat the exam and so on. But so remembering which part of your exam you have to repeat, which section, is really helpful, right? Um, so I would suggest that we build out, you know, when I go back to our reality here, I'm just going back, is, as I mentioned before, officially GCP has these sort of esoteric topic areas, and they give you this, but in reality, when you do the exam, none of that esoteric stuff comes in. It's all very real. It's all making the assumption that a cloud leader can operate the cloud, can work in the cloud, can handle the GUI, can log in, can log out, can look where everything's are, and so on. So that's really the power of the cloud leader. And so some of the things I just want to bring out here. So what are some of the top resources that you need to go through this, right? To help you succeed in your Google Cloud certification journey, we've compiled this list. Again, the list here is not just the only list. Obviously, there's other lists I've not included, and you're free to go and document those and find those out. But first and foremost, going through the official Google Cloud documentation and training course is kind of table stakes, right? You kind of expect that. And but I would say for this exam in particular, given how difficult it tends to be, getting the right type of practice exams and sample questions are an excellent way for you to familiarize yourself with the exam format and gauge your readiness. So I would include practice tests. We get that with our GCP, Cloud Institute, CDL offerings, right? In additionally, you want to basically, consider joining some online forums and study groups, and these are groups where you could connect with your fellow learners and other GCP professionals, ask questions, share insights, and learn from others' experiences, right? Again, part of this is really getting at sort of what can help us. So we all know that Google Cloud uh, Digital Leader is available for free on Google's certification page. I've listed that here as well, cloud.google.com/learn/certification/cloud dash digital dash leader. But is it enough? And the answer is no. We've had students that have gone through this, and because they go through this, they are not really getting the hands-on piece. So we recommend folks to join our version of this course where we do offer it. We do offer it as free, right? And we also put a little guarantee that you would pass first time, right? This is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but the reality is we're very confident with our, we've taken so many people through this journey that our experts, our coaches, our trainers, they all have an understanding which they can give to students and really guide them in their journey on what areas they need to build. So even if they fail once, they can always come back and take a retest and make that happen for them, right? We also have sort of a special offer, which Peter will talk about a little later here. We have our first GCP Cloud Certification Bootcamp. Now, what does that bootcamp mean? I would say for the first time, we're offering sort of someone who wants to go all out, wants to make that big money, right? Become that cloud architect for Google. We make it possible for them, right? If I go back to our cloud journey here, you want to make that big money, you can start by getting your digital leader. But guess what? At a very affordable price, we could include a bundle that includes this. What this does is, A, you spent the money. B, because you spend the money, you'll hold yourself accountable. C, if you don't hold yourself accountable because you're in the program, our GCP coaches will hold you accountable, such as myself and others. And D, we will give you other resources besides this, including labs, hands-on, to really create durable learning, right? Because a lot of folks, people don't realize when you learn something, you actually forget it if you don't apply it very quickly. And so by constantly applying, constant iteration, constant practice, right, you'll be able to ensure that the learning becomes very durable, right? A little joke for basketball fans out there. It's all about practice, right? And then, so going back, I highly recommend everyone to check out the Cloud Institute. We'll paste these links as well. We'll share them on our chat here as well if you're interested. And then Peter will have a few more questions on that as well. I also want you to look at sort of on the right side, we have some of these additional resources that are available for free from Google. They have the study guide. Make use of the study guide. They have a bunch of things. All of these are important. In fact, I have downloaded all of these and bookmarked them, not because for the exam, but because as I'm working on GCP, maybe the role is to build a cloud strategy for another organization, or the goal is to help train the new folks coming into our cloud team, right? These documentations serve as references and they're constantly updated. So they're wonderful to have and to go over and to provide you sort of the full picture around this, around your Google Cloud solution and your Google Cloud environment as well. So so with that, I don't have anything else to add. I'll pass it off to you. Peter. If you have any questions, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, we definitely did have some questions, and we all appreciate that value pack presentation for anyone that's looking to get started in GCP, that's a great start. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. Our first question, let's see. All right, is from Jacob, who asks, "What kind of jobs would I be qualified for with this certification, or would I need some more certs?"
That's a great question, right? So I think the certification would be, it depends on your job, what role, Jacob, today. If you're a business professional today, you could play a role in maybe being a project manager that's running IT projects where you're running, you have an understanding of cloud, you know how it fits, you can actually manage a cloud team and so on. So it's basically an acumen where you can build with align with your things. Like I had a recently someone in the healthcare space that was looking at becoming, shifting it to healthcare IT, and a lot of their healthcare IT is in the cloud. And this is a healthcare professional. They work with patients, or they have worked with patients in the past, but now a lot of those patient applications, databases, electronic health records reside in the cloud. They want to get an acumen about that and maintain that for their organization. So they would go and take this as an example, and then have become sort of the go-to person on their organization when it comes to cloud related questions. And maybe and in that organization context, they outsource their IT to a third party, but they like to keep someone in the team with that, having some of that cloud acumen, that GCP cloud acumen as well. I hope that answers the question.
All right, perfect. And the next one we had here, is it enough to finish the courses on the GC website, or do we need to study different materials?
The official answer is the courses in the GC website is enough. The unofficial answer, and what I strongly believe, is absolutely no. This is one of the most difficult exams, entry level exams I've come across. Personally, I have failed it once and then passed it the second time, and only because of the tricky and wordiness. And then you really have to play in, and you need the hands on experience. I cannot give you more, but the exam has a huge component of hands-on experience and labs that you need to be familiar with. You won't have to do labs, but doing the labs will give you the knowledge to answer some of those questions, right? And so that's where I would say the absolutely no. You know, you have to go, and that's why those resources we've provided you is really going to help you, and probably help you pass the first time, right? I think that's probably the goal for a lot of folks, is we want to pass the first time. That's where I would definitely recommend. Yeah.
All right. The next one says, I'm new to the cloud. Would you suggest I focus down one vendor certification path or get the foundational certifications, which with each of the big three? Which one makes me more hireable?
That's a very good question. Thanks, Christian. This is actually a great question. It's multi-part. I'll answer each one. Now, if you're starting your journey to cloud, understand that AWS cloud is the most mature. So the most folks that are certified in AWS, it's a larger population. If you're starting in cloud and competing with jobs in that space, a lot of folks may already have a one up on you on terms of experience and having more, more AWS certifications on that. So I would say AWS, probably not. If you're new to cloud, Azure is a good place, but GCP probably is better, only because GCP is more newer. And a lot of organizations are building their GCP environments. As I mentioned, GCP is the fastest growing number two cloud provider in a multi-cloud environment, right? So almost every multi-cloud environment will have a GCP piece. So focusing on Google GCP cloud would be the best option right now. It will, if you're, it's a much harder exam because you're doing something harder. Even if you go attempt Azure down the road or AWS down the road, those will become easier for you, and you should be able to, you should be able to really knock those out of the park. A lot of people say, no, let me start easy, let me go all the way. I'm here to tell you, the way this course is organized is very nice. Like everything is straightforward if you put in the time, and I mean put in the real time. Don't put in a weekend and try to go attempt the exam. Again, only because I'm talking from the perspective of someone who's very new, a newbie, right? Spend the time and go through it, right? And do the courses, do the labs. join the communities, get help, and so on. This is really, really key for us, right? That you get this. Then, now that you have the GCP background, then when you go to do Azure courses or AWS courses, guess what? You can come in from a perspective of you have a little more information, but then the foundational stuff for Azure and AWS will be just easier and quicker. So yes, front end, top heavy, GCP may take a lot more time, but if you pursue multi vendor certifications down the road, you'll be quicker around that. So it's kind of like an uphill over, and then it's kind of like a slow downhill for the rest of your certification journey. So hope that answers the question for you.
Great. We got a couple of questions just coming in on LinkedIn. I think one that is tied back to what you just answered, so I'll add that there. What about Alibaba Cloud? Should that be considered at this point, or is the market share too small?
The market share is a little too small, and a lot of I work with a lot of healthcare and restricted industries. They don't typically even consider Alibaba. Their hierarchy is obviously AWS, Azure, GCP, and then probably the fourth option is Oracle, right? And the fifth option probably be IBM. So Alibaba is not even in the discussion, and this is only specific to restricted industries. If you work for the government, you work in healthcare, you work in personal identifiable data of people within North America, Europe, and that data has to be within the continent, then things like that. Now, if you have an organization that is already using Alibaba Cloud, by all means, you should be getting certified and learn everything about Alibaba Cloud as your job depends upon it. So, yeah.
Makes sense. And then the same user asked, instead of cloud architect or cloud engineer, can I go for cloud security or seek both cloud engineer and cloud security?
This is a great question, right? So security often is an advanced topic in my books. And I say advanced is security is not a bolt-on discipline. It's not a bolt-on mindset. It's basically it's best practices, right? That's what it is. Hey, I know something so well that I know what not to do and not to leave out those steps, and that becomes security. That becomes a security practice, right? A best practice, as an example. To build that kind of acumen, to build that kind of understanding, doing the cloud engineer, doing the cloud architect upfront is probably recommended. I would recommend at the bare minimum you do the cloud engineer, then do the cloud security at bare minimum. But going from the cloud digital leader, going straight into security, you will have a bunch of gaps in your knowledge, especially if you're new to cloud, not really looked after cloud environments. Those will be some things. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right, perfect. And I think that does it for our questions right now. So I'll let you know, I kind of teased about, here, let me bring myself up there, teased about that free course. So we've made our GCP Cloud Digital Leader Certification free for a limited time. And of course, includes more than 100 hands-on labs, which will help you prepare for the certification. It's only free until next Monday, so check it out at cloudinstitute.io. Just search Cloud Digital Leader to find that. And then also for a limited time, our GCP Bootcamp is on sale for 50% off. Bootcamp will prepare you to earn the three most in-demand certs, so the one we talked about today, then Associate Cloud Engineer and Professional Cloud Architect. You'll also get an hour of one-on-one coaching with a GCP expert, plus access to our self-paced courses and over 100 hands-on GCP labs. So be sure to check those out. Zaki, any final thoughts before we let you go as the comments continue to come in about how well you did today?
Oh, thank you, guys. I just try my best to give this information. I do want to emphasize some of the things. This is a great offer, Peter, from Cloud Institute, letting the labs be available for free. I do recommend everyone to take advantage of this offer. These labs are not free; they cost money, and so especially when you run labs, they're running in the cloud. Someone is paying for them, right? So to all the serious listeners advancing their career is very critical to take advantage of this. At the same time, the value added Cloud Institute is the coaching. Like we bring our coaching experts in, it really makes a huge difference. You're not Googling information and you're not asking ChatGPT old, stale information from 2021. You're getting the information right now that's current May 2023 information, right? So it makes a huge difference. Also, I want to shout out to on May 17th, for some of you that are following along, we will be live streaming. Our theme this month of May is cloud security. So there was some folks around cloud security. Do stay in touch for some of those cloud security live streams and webinars that we have planned. Again, very, hope to see all of you can join us again. I'll pass it off to you, Peter.
Hey, I do have one more question for you today. Someone has asked. You mentioned some resources. Is that just the things on the slides? Because I told people that we will provide them the slides.
Yes, this is on the slide. So there are two resources. There's a slide on the resources, Ali. All of those, there's a link. I mean, the actual URL is on the slide, so you can look those up, and then you can copy paste those and then bookmark them. So hopefully that will give you.
Great. And I put my email in the LinkedIn chat. So if anyone wants to just drop me an email, I'll send you back a PDF of those slides so you have those. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. As Zaki said, May 17th is going to be our next webinar, noon Eastern time. Zaki will be presenting an hour-long webinar on the future of cloud security, trends and predictions for 2023 and beyond. So we hope you can join us for that. But for now, have a great day, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.